I just don't know how you'd fake this unless you were some extraordinary kind of a... I just don't think a con person could have come up with it unless they were incredibly brilliant and determined. So
for me, I'd like to know more about the lightning strike.
Yeah, me too.
And what effect that might have had on her neurological system.
The lightning strike, the near-death experience, the transformation. So, Tiffany, I wonder if we could start by describing the lightning strike, the circumstances of your life at that time, and how you dealt with it.
I was struck by lightning in 1999. One of our horses had gotten into where the farm equipment was stored, the tractor and the truck and so forth, and there was a chain link going all the way around the shed. And as the storm came up the valley and the lightning started striking all around, I went up there to let them loose. And when I let down the chain link, right at that moment, everything went white. And the last thing that I remember is falling down into the mud right in front of the truck there. The next thing that I knew, I found myself up in the heavens. I heard the voice of God, and it wasn't in my head. It was through my entire body. The voice said, "If you love me, you'll go back." So I said yes.
Can you tell us about how the stigmata first began to manifest?
One night, I had very, very vivid dreams. And I woke up and I noticed that I had brown marks where the wounds of Christ would go. And it was painful. The next day, they just started running and running, and I had blood going down my hands and down my feet. And I called up a friend that I knew, Father Francis, and he walked in and he said, "Oh my God." I didn't know what to think. This is a little hard for a person to get their head around, that this is real. You almost want to ask other people, do you see this too?
Tiffany, could we look at your hands?
Certainly.
So is that?
The white areas. The white area is the scar tissue.
Did you have it on your palm too?
Yes, and it was more tender on the inside of the palms.
Well, it recurred, right? I mean, there were other stigmata that followed.
Oh, yes. From July 2005 to April 2009. The major reason for me having stigmata was to bring forth more prayers. That these were prayers that would help ease the suffering of mankind.
So why do you think you were chosen to have all of these experiences?
Not because of any special thing about me. I had had a lifetime of brokenness, drug problems, and living throughout the country when I was a child with being left with different families that I didn't know, and always bouts of poverty and bouts of abuse one way or the other. And I had always felt close to God.
Tiffany is compelling, and I think it's possible that God spoke to her. But I'm struggling with the claim that she's experienced stigmata, because convincing cases are so rare.
It's really unclear to me how much of what she said I can believe. There seems... I keep coming back to her early life trauma, which reminds me of a case I've studied before dealing with Munchausen's, a psychological syndrome in which people intentionally fake illnesses to get attention. I'm not sure that this syndrome applies to Tiffany's case, but I want to speak to an expert to learn more about it.
Coming up, an eyewitness to Tiffany's stigmata answers some tough questions.
So would the wounds open and close quickly? Was it gradual?
And you didn't fear for her life or want to take her to a doctor?
Randall and Indre have come to the eastern United States to investigate a bizarre case. This woman, Tiffany Snow, claims that after being struck by lightning, she experienced stigmata, the spontaneous appearance of Christ's wounds suffered during his crucifixion. After hearing her story, the detectives are now meeting with experts to weigh in on the...
Hi.
Hi, I'm Indre.
Hi, FatherBilly. Come on in.
Thank you.
For all the evidence we can compile in this case, eyewitness testimony is still our most important source of information. After our meeting with Tiffany, she invited us to speak with her husband, Father Billy. He belongs to the Old Holy Catholic Order, a branch of Catholicism that permits priests to marry. He and Tiffany were wed in 2006.
You know, I grew up Roman Catholic, so I knew about stigmata, and I'd known about the different saints that have had it, and I don't think it's something that you could ever be prepared for.
Could we go back to when the stigmata first started? Would the wounds open and close quickly? Was it gradual?
They'd have a reddish hue in the beginning, and then it would just start bleeding.
Did it look just the same it would have if you had cut your hand?
This was like an opening that appeared and expanded. It had a divot to it and went down. And the wound on her hand and on her feet, they weren't clean. It wasn't like a, you know, if you cut yourself, you could hold it back together. But this, there was no holding. There was no skin to do it. There was no healing. It was just obvious that you had to let it go, run its course.
And you didn't fear for her life or want to take her to a doctor or...
There was times when I wasn't sure if she'd had the strength. Quite frankly, it was something I was just keeping in prayer that she would be able to make it through it too.
Do you think she's a saint?
Well, the nice thing is I think that's up to God, who's a saint and who's not. I don't think that's for any people to say.
After meeting with Tiffany's husband, Father Billy, there's something about this story that isn't sitting well with me. And I guess the scientist in me is left with more questions now than answers.
Coming up, an alternative explanation for Tiffany's miracle.
That air of superiority. Some of these people are faking. There's nothing wrong.